Thank you. We'll now take your questions. If you can state your name and medium that you represent, please.
Iris Azuka, ABC News. A question for the Presidency and the Commission. We understand from the big member states that the opening of membership negotiations for Albania, it will take time. It will take time. More than for Croatia, Serbia, Montenegro, for sure. Hopefully not like Macedonia. But anyway, the question is, should Albania fulfill all the criteria that we see today in the Council conclusions to open the negotiations? Thank you very much.
Listen, you don't need a big member state to tell the obvious. I mean, it's just if you follow the progress report of the European Commission and what we are saying in a consistent way, you will see from the opinion we have provided to the member states and also to Albania on its applications to become the EU member states, that the task is huge. Now, let me recall that last year we have actually identified 12 big priorities, or at the end of 2012. And we have helped the authorities in Albania to address most of them, and then upon the success, we have been able already at the end of last year to recommend the granting the candidate status. At the same time, we made it absolutely clear that the candidate status is not the opening of accession negotiations. It's appreciation of the reforms being done by both the previous government and the current government, and also incentives for the reforms to continue. Now we have the high-level dialogue on the 5 key priorities. We have clearly defined what needs to be done, and I'm actually very thankful for the member states today to underline some of those issues. What we need is a solid track record. It's a solid track record. We'll be working with the authorities and also other important stakeholders in Albania to address exactly those issues. So there will be no ambiguity concerning what really needs to be done for my successor to be able to come to the member states with a solid and credible proposal to open the accession negotiations.
If I may just add that by reminding you that in the treaty it is very clear that there is no decision of big or small member states about opening the negotiations. It is a unanimous decision of all member states upon a proposal of the European Commission. So the differentiation between big and small doesn't count at all when it comes to a unanimous decision of the member states to open negotiations. And of course we look forward. We know that the process has become more complex compared to previous negotiations, and depends how long ago you go. I mean, I remember very well the negotiations of my own country in the 80s, in the 70s, and then Spain and Portugal, in which I participated as a European Commission official. It is much more complex now, for the simple reason that now also the European Union has become a more complex organization with more competences, and with competences that a few years ago, like the euro or other policy areas, but the decision is taken by a unanimous vote of the member states. Thank you.
Arta Tozaj, Top Channel Albania Television. First to the EU presidency. In the Council conclusions, there is no mentioning of the word negotiations. All the conditions are mentioned, are listed, but not the wording accession negotiations. I would like to know why, and as it was already mentioned in the last, in December Council. First. Secondly, is enlargement an EU priority in the upcoming 5 years? We know it won't be for the Italian presidency, but for the rest of the years. And here Commissioner, do you expect Albania to be able to be in a position to start the negotiations during the next mandate of the Commission? Thank you.
Okay, on the question on the conclusions of the General Affairs Council, I'm trying to find out the exact. I mean, when we speak about granting the candidate status to a country, I think it is very clear that the next step can only be starting of accession negotiations. This is. Sorry. Yeah, because now we didn't. Yes, the conditions for the next step, and the next step can only be the starting of negotiations, but perhaps the Commissioner can clarify, but I can assure you there was no any political will to diminish the importance. I mean, we all know what it means, candidate. It doesn't mean starting of negotiations. It has some implications, not only political, but some practical as well. And now the time frame between candidate status and starting of negotiations depends on, mainly, if not exclusively, on the ability of the candidate country to fulfill the conditions which are clearly mentioned here. And I'm sure that at the level of the European Council, when the head of states and governments are going to adopt a kind of strategic program for the next 5 years, I'm sure that enlargement will be one of the priorities, and I'm sure that also during the Italian presidency and the next Commission, enlargement will be a priority. It has always been, I mean, in the last years, a very successful EU policy. Just look back in the last 2 years with the accession of Croatia. So I think that nobody can blame the European Union that we don't keep our word on the enlargement policy. On the contrary, I think from our side as European Union, we have fulfilled all the conditions and all the expectations that we have announced.
First of all, no game with the words here and there. I think what really is important that the December Council decisions stands. They sort of provided with a clear framework what are the next steps and what are sort of the key priorities which needs to be addressed before the issue of opening of accession negotiations could come on the table of the member states. And it was within that framework that the member states and the Commission have addressed the specific issue of the candidacy. So I would focus on the positive news being agreed and done within the framework of still relevant December decision of the European Council. Number two, let me recall, or let me reconfirm the point that I'm trying to underline as a part of the news story of enlargement. And it is that there are two policies in the European Union which are interconnected from the very beginning of the European Union. And it is the deepening integration of the European Union and also enlargement. Getting deeper in integration and at the same time adding new members and strengthening the European Union through both policies is what's actually moving the European Union forward. Sometimes it is one policy influencing another, the other time it's exactly the opposite. But without those two policies being actively pursued at the same time, the European Union will hardly be able to move forward. And the third issue, whether Albania will be able to start accession negotiations during the next Commission. Listen, I can assure you that the capacity of the European Commission, the willingness of the European Commission to help Albania on its path is going to be there. So the only question is whether the political will and readiness on Albanian side to address those 5 key priorities is there. Because if it's going to be the case, then the answer to your question is positive.